over the next few years. I proposed additional tax credits that will promote private sector hiring and energy conservation. We should do that without delay. I think ideas like this should be pretty palatable to the other party. They seem pretty common sense, pretty centrist. We should be able to hear their ideas as well. That's why I spoke to the Republican caucus last Friday. I think it was to the country's benefit that we had an open and frank discussion about the challenges facing the American people and our ideas to solve them. I got to admit, I had a little fun at that caucus. Now, obviously, on some issues, we didn't agree. But on some we did. And I'm reminded that when it came to health insurance reform in particular, I sought out and supported Republican ideas from the start. So did you. Max Baucus, where's Max? I think he can testify to spending a little time listening to Republican ideas. So can Chris Dodd and Tom Harkin. You considered hundreds of Republican amendments and incorporated many of their ideas into the legislation that passed the Senate. So when I start hearing that we should accept Republican ideas, let's be clear, we have. What hasn't happened is the other side accepting our ideas. And I told them, I want to work together when we can, and I meant it. I believe that's the best way to get things done for the American people. But I also made it clear that we'll call them out when they say they want to work with us, and we extend a hand and get a fist in return. Last week, for example, you put up for a vote a bill I supported. Conrad, Greg, Fiscal Commission. We were assured this was going to be bipartisan, only to see 7 Republicans who co-sponsored the idea in the first place suddenly decide to vote against it. Now, I'm open to honest differences of opinion, but what I'm not open to is changing positions solely because it's good short-term politics. What I'm not open to is a decision to stay on the sidelines and then assign blame. I have little patience for the kinds of political calculations that says the cost of blocking everything is less than the cost of passing nothing. It basically says, if you lose, I win. That's been the politics in Washington for too long, and the problem is it leaves the American people out of the equation. So I would just suggest to this caucus, if anybody's searching for a lesson from Massachusetts, I promise you the answer is not to do nothing. The American people are out of patience with business as usual. They're fed up with a Washington that has become so absorbed with who's up and who's down that we've lost sight of how they're doing. They want us to start worrying less about keeping our jobs and more about helping them keep their jobs. And they want to see their business done in an open and transparent way. When we took back the Senate in 2007, we did so in part because we made a case that we'd be better on ethics and transparency. And we backed that up by passing the most sweeping ethics reform since Watergate and by beginning to address earmark abuse. We should be proud of those accomplishments, but if we're going to erase that deficit of trust that I mentioned at the State of the Union, we're still going to have to do more. And that's why I've proposed that we work together to make all earmark requests public on one central website before they come up for a vote, and to require lobbyists to discuss details of their contacts on behalf of their clients with the administration or with Congress. That's why, working with people like Dick Durbin, who's been vocal on this for a long time, we've got to confront the gaping loophole that the Supreme Court recently opened in our campaign finance laws that allowed special interests to spend without limit to influence American elections. We've also got to get back to fiscal responsibility, and I spoke about this at the State of the Union. Just 10 years ago, America had a budget surplus of over $200 billion. Remember, people were worried about what might happen with all these surpluses and whether it would create problems in the financial markets. That was just a decade ago. After 2 wars, 2 tax cuts, prescription drug program, none of which were paid for, we faced a deficit of over $1 trillion, a debt over the next decade of $8 trillion before my administration spent a single dollar. Now, we can't change the past, but we can change the future. And that's why I'm asking you to adopt a freeze in non-security discretionary spending for the next 3 years. Starting next year, we're still having a tough time right now, given the economy is just starting to pick up steam. But starting next year. That's why I'm grateful that all of you restored the pay-go rules that worked so well in the 1990s. I already mentioned the Fiscal Commission. We may not have been able to get the votes for a statutory commission, but I am going to appoint a commission by executive order because it's important for us to take these issues seriously. Not just for us, but for our children and our grandchildren. Let me just wrap up by saying this. I know these are tough times to hold public office. I'm there in the arena with you. The need is great. The anger and the anguish are intense. The economy is massive, and so as a consequence, no matter what levers and buttons we press, sometimes it doesn't move as quickly as is needed to provide relief to so many of our constituents. In that kind of circumstance, I think the natural political instinct is to tread lightly, keep your head down, and to play it safe. I've said this before to this caucus. I just want to say it again. For me, it is constantly important to remind myself why I got into this business in the first place. Why I'm willing to be away from my family for big stretches at a time. The financial sacrifices that so many of you have made. Being subject to criticism constantly. Yeah, you don't get in this for the fame. You don't get in it for the title. You get in it because somewhere in your background, at some point in time, you decided there was an issue that was so important that you were willing to stand up and be counted. You were going to fight for something. And you decided you were going to run as a Democrat because there was a core set of values within the Democratic Party about making sure that everybody had a fair shot, making sure that middle-class folks were treated fairly in our economy, making sure that those who were on the outside had a way in that led you to get involved in public service. And that's what we have to remind ourselves, especially when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. You look at an issue right now like health care. So many of us campaigned on the idea that we were going to change this health care system. So many of us looked people in the eye who had been denied because of a pre-existing condition, or just didn't have health insurance at all, or small business owners in our communities who told us that their premiums had gone up 25% or 30%, and we said we were going to change it. Well, here we are, with a chance to change it. And all of you put extraordinary work last year into making serious changes that would not only reform the insurance industry, not only cover 30 million Americans, but would also bend the cost curve and save $1 trillion on our deficits, according to the Congressional Budget Office. There's a direct link between the work that you guys did on that and the reason that you got into public office in the first place. And so as we think about moving forward, I hope we don't lose sight of why we're here. We've got to finish the job on health care. We've got to finish the job on financial regulatory reform. We've got to finish the job. We've got to finish the job even though it's hard. And I'm absolutely confident that if we do so in an open way, in a transparent way, in a spirit that says to our political opponents that we welcome their ideas, we are open to compromise, but what we're not willing to do is to give up on the basic notion that this government can be responsive to ordinary people and help give them a hand up so they can achieve their American dreams. We will not give up that ideal. If that's where we go, I'm confident that politics in 2010 will take care of themselves. Harry, thank you very much. Let me turn it off to questions. Thank you.
Thank you.